Hey! Today I'm taking you along with me in my process of making a big oil painting. If you know me, you know that I'm not an oil painting specialist, but I've been working on this painting for a super exciting collab, and I thought that it would be interesting to document my process in a longer form video. For this collab, I was only required to film an Instagram reel, so I am not making this video as part of the collab, just to make it clear. So if, like me, you are a beginner with oil paint, this video is going to be super interesting for you, so come along with me while I create my biggest oil painting so far. I just came back from getting my prints to the scanner, the best scanner and printer in Montreal. Well, that's the only one I've tried, but they're so good. Now I have to start this collab that I have with a very nice brand, Desire. I have a really big canvas to paint, so I have to start. But now I'm just wondering, do I use this easel or this one? But I don't know if it's big enough. Let's see. So this is an easel that you put on a table. And I'm wondering if it's... Oh yeah, it's big enough. Because to be honest, that big easel back there, it's really not the best in the sense that it's not gonna hold my painting. So there's nothing preventing my painting from falling on top of me, or, you know, it's not, you just put it there and you hope for the best. This thing might be on its last legs, I think, because it's not very solid. And I think that this is just gonna crack at some point. It's very wobbly. But I think it's fine for now.
No, ça va y aller.
Can I use parchment paper as palette paper when oil painting? Yes, you can use parchment paper as palette paper when oil painting. Advantages include easy to obtain from kitchen supplies, inexpensive, convenient for cleanup. Consideration: parchment paper might be slightly more soggy compared to disposable palette paper. While generally suitable, be aware that parchment paper's coating might interact slightly with your paint. However, most artists find it works well for oil painting. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. And you know what? I think it's gonna be a good color, because it's kind of a light mid-tone, but it's not white. So maybe it's gonna help me with my color mixing. Okay, this is going to be my mixing palette. I'm starting with this yellow canvas, yellow ochre to be exact. I put a layer of acrylic to create a nice mid-tone, which I'm hoping will help me with my color choices. I have learned that starting with a mid-tone makes everything easier, because all the colors that are lighter than this mid-tone are going to be light colors, and all the colors that are darker are going to be darks. When you start with a white canvas, it's hard to know where the middle value lies, which can lead to some errors or some wasted time. I like starting with yellow ochre because it's a perfect mid-tone and its color is going to warm up my painting. I just want to recap where we're at right now. I'm doing an oil painting, and to be able to decide what kind of composition I wanted and what kind of, well, I had a style in mind, but I needed to do some sketches first. So that's what I did in my sketchbook. The first one was a little bit bigger, and then I did the second one, which is this one. And I really like this one, so I decided to go with this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing my sketch on this big painting, and I'm using my sketchbook to work from. And it's the second time that I do that, working from a sketchbook, and I really like it. I did the first layer using yellow ochre and acrylic paint. And now I'm doing the sketch on top using burnt sienna. I'm doing it with oil. I really like working with two brushes. The first one is the one that I use for the drawing, and the second one is the one that I use for erasing. So whenever I want to erase an area, I'm going to take my eraser brush, I'm going to dip it in some solvent, and I'm going to erase or refine the parts that I don't like. You can pretty much work and rework until you're satisfied. It's very forgiving, it dries slowly, so you have time to work on your painting. You're not in a rush, and you can stop, continue the next day, and just pick up where you left off in. I love it. You can see that I'm not done with my sketch. This part is way less detailed than this side. I kind of got carried away with that side. I really liked what I was doing, so I decided, let me add some values. It's good for value mapping, but it's also good for my sketch because it makes everything clearer in my head. But the value mapping is something that I'm going to do after this sketch. I've already started, as you can see, but I'm going to make sure that all my values are good in this whole painting before I start adding the color. In the end, you won't see this sketch underneath unless I want some parts of it to peek through the painting, but I don't think so. I don't think that I'll do that. My goal for today would be to finish the sketch and finish the value mapping so that tomorrow I can start with the color. I'm thinking it's gonna take 2 days maybe for the colors. And I also need to go to the art store tomorrow because I had to ask for what I wanted for art supplies, and I had to use a specific brand of oil paints. I asked for this small set. I wanted a big range of color because I wanted to make sure that I can do everything that I want to do. But there's some colors that I know I'm going to use a lot, like titanium white, yellow ochre. I wish I had a light blue, but that one I can mix. So I know that 12 milliliters is not enough for a canvas this big. So I asked if they could send me more or if I could purchase more, and they said yes. They're so nice. So I'm going to go to the art store tomorrow to pick up these tubes and continue working. But so far it's okay. I can start working with the colors. It's just that I know I'm going to need more, and I have 3 days to finish this painting, so I can't really wait. Things need to happen now. Oh, I'm trying something. Okay. Okay. Don't fall. Day 2 of painting this big oil painting. So yesterday we finished the sketch. Today we're going to add the colors, and I wasn't too sure. I did another painting similar to this one a few weeks back, and I wasn't too sure if that time I started with the darker colors or the lighter ones, but I know that it went really well, so I kind of wanted to do the same thing today. And good thing I filmed a time lapse of that painting, so I was able to watch it and see exactly what I did. And I started with the darkest colors. So this is what I'm gonna do today. I'm wondering how it's gonna go because the darker areas that I put in my sketch are not completely dried, but I think it's gonna be okay because I used burnt sienna, and I really love mixing my burnt sienna in my darkest colors. So I think it's just gonna mix with whatever I put on top and be super pretty. I'm sure it's gonna be fine. This is what I got at the store today. So I got this raw sienna. I thought that this might be the closest thing to transparent yellow oxide, which is a color that I love for mixing, but they don't have it in this range. And if I had it before, I would have used this, I think, to do my sketch, because it's a little bit lighter than the burnt sienna that I used. I got 2 whites, because the white that they give in this set is very small, teeny tiny. Titanium white, 12 milliliters. And I really don't think this is gonna be enough. This is a soft mixing white, which I have never used. I checked and it's the same pigment than titanium white, so I really don't know what the difference is. I guess we're gonna find out. I got another yellow ochre because, again, this is very small and I use a lot of yellow ochre. I got this very nice azo yellow green, and unfortunately I had to get a really big one of burnt sienna because they didn't have the medium size anymore, and I know I'm gonna use this a lot for my mixing. I love to use this to create dark blues, dark greens. Before we start, here is the painting so far. It's looking so nice. Day 3 of painting this big oil painting. I think so far I'm pretty much on track, yes. My goal is to finish today, but I still have some extra time tomorrow if I need it. It's always good to give yourself a little buffer just in case. Yesterday went really well. I had a lot of fun mixing the greens. I'm almost done with the greens and now I'm going to move on to the mountainside, which is more going to be like light pinks, yellow ochre, pale colors. And I'm going to do the sky at the end. I'm just wondering if I do the house now, and I think maybe I should, just so the edges stay clean. I don't mind if the house is not too detailed. I think it would clash a lot if the house was super detailed and the rest of the painting is looking a little bit more raw. So I think the house needs to look like the painting does. But I still want the edges to remain sharp. We will paint a little bit just so you can have an idea of how slow I truly am. I'm filming a time lapse and everything always seems to be going so fast, but truly this is one stroke at a time. My previous layer that I put on yesterday is not dry, so I have to be extra careful not to blend things that I don't want to blend. I want to keep the edges of my shapes really clean. It always takes some time. One thing that I'm noticing with this paint, because I learned how to paint with oils using artist grade paint, really high quality paint. I'm very lucky that there is a paint shop next to my place here that mixes their own paint, so they're able to sell them for cheaper than the big brand stores, and you get artist quality at quite a cheap price. Really, it's really worth it. I took 2 classes that taught me about the basics of oil painting in the context of painting a portrait. The things that I learned in my basic oil class, even though it was aimed for portraiture, I'm able to apply here. The main thing that was stopping me with oil paints was just that it looked like such an intimidating medium, and you see a bunch of stuff. If you do research, everybody paints differently, everybody uses different mediums, and they're all gonna say that this medium is the best, it's a must-have and stuff like that, when in reality you don't even need medium. But when you don't know about oil painting, it's easy to think that you need some, otherwise it's not gonna work. But yeah, you could use some, but it's really not mandatory at all. You'll get really good results without. So these are things like that that I learned. I learned about mixing the oil. I learned about consistency of paint whenever you want to achieve certain effects, like to do your sketch. you're going to want to dilute your paint with solvent just enough so it gets you this kind of ink-like texture. I was able to ask all of my dumb beginner questions. I had a very generous teacher who taught us all anything he knows, basically. Every question we had, he would take the time to answer. So I had a question about signing a painting. Every time I try to sign my paintings with oils and acrylics, I never get the right texture on my brush, and I'm never able to sign my paintings in one go. But I see artists, they just do this and then it's signed and they get a nice paint consistency. But for me, my brush was always too dry, or I had areas where I had too much paint, other areas where I didn't have enough. And so basically you just have to use some solvent and dilute your paint so you get the desired consistency. But it's just like things that you never know if you're doing correctly until you get a confirmation from somebody who knows better than you. For me, it's easier to learn how to paint watercolors by yourself, by trial and error, than oil. Now that I know more about oil though, I feel like it's a very forgiving medium. It's very nice to use. It's definitely something that I see myself using more and more in the future. Okay, now I'll need a very tiny brush. But I was saying that I learned how to paint with very high quality paint, and this is more student grade paint. They're still very good, as you can probably see. They're covering large areas of the canvas. They glide on super well. But I see the difference just because I learned with something different, with a different quality. So I can see that this paint is a little bit less pigmented. I would be confident that I can sell this. I wouldn't be worried about the quality or of anything. But it's just that I can see that it's different. And I saw that, especially for the darker colors, I could see that they were a little bit less transparent. I needed to use more paint to cover the same area that I would use if I were using artist quality paints. But honestly, these ones are very affordable. I'm using the brand Winton from Winsor Newton, and they're so affordable that it's really worth it. If you're starting out with watercolors and you're not too sure you're gonna like it, or you have a limited budget, then I would say go for these because the quality is good enough that you can create professional work. So I think that this is enough for my collab. I could always add a few finishing touches. I could go on forever, honestly, but I think that for the purpose of the collab, this is fine. I don't want it to look too polished, so I'm happy with this look. This was so fun, so fun. I'm happy that I started with the darker areas because I realized that the darker colors were not as opaque as the lighter ones, but I still had good results. But because I started with the darkest areas first, then the next day I worked on the lights. I worked on the lights for 2 days. So the darkest areas had about 2 days to dry. Then I was able to add a little bit more on top of the darkest areas, and it worked well. Now I feel like all the areas are opaque enough. I was really able to do everything I wanted with this paint, so I'm really happy with that. Oh, I love it so much. This was so much fun to do. I just want to do more and more and more. I just want to explore this style even more. I want to paint more with oils. The few days that I spent working on this, whether it was doing the sketches in my sketchbooks or doing this one, I just felt total bliss. To be honest, I think this is what I want to be doing every day of my life. Maybe one day. So I'm very proud of this.
This is my biggest canvas that I've painted in oils. I love how buttery the oils are. I like to see some brush strokes. I like to see some imperfections here and there. The only thing that I need to do is oil out some parts, because I noticed that some parts, when I look at it from an angle, I noticed that some parts are dull looking, especially the dark greens, like this part here, some parts there, here, whereas I can see some here. I can see a lot, especially the dark greens. I need to take linseed oil, put some on a clean cloth, and just go over top of these areas that are dull. So hopefully it brings the shine of the paint and the color depth back. And after that, you let it dry for a few days, and if needed, you can do it a few times again. I think that linseed oil, though, the problem with it is that it's quite yellow, so you risk yellowing your paint. But I don't think it's gonna be a problem for me because it's mostly the dark areas that need oiling out. You could also use some walnut oil. I think that this one is less yellow, so you would have a better result if yellowing is something you wanna avoid. Okay, now I think this first part is where I added the oil first. So I'm going to wipe it off gently. It's quite hard to see exactly where I needed to add the oil. At some point you add the oil so it gets super shiny, and then you're not sure if the rest of the painting needs oiling out as well, or it's just that it appears dull in comparison with the oiled out part, you know? Normally I would have worn gloves, but I don't have any here. I would recommend wearing gloves anytime that you come into contact with anything related to oil paint. It does not smell the best, to be honest. I'm quite looking forward to being done with this. Satisfying though to see the painting start shining, but I'm not sure it's too good for my lungs right now. So that's it. That's my process of creating an oil painting on canvas, from the sketching part to the finished result. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what else you would like to see from me in the future. I have some collabs that you might already have seen, so I hope you don't mind that. For me, this is super exciting. I love having collabs. Of course, I'm refusing everything that doesn't fit with what I already liked to do. And I will see you again very soon. Take care.